Lala Legacy, and welcome back to another episode of Cinderella Phenomenon. So before we jump in, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because that would mean the whole world to me. And after this video, if you like it, hit that like button too. Alright, let's get into this. Parfait and Delora look at each other solemnly. The tension in the room mounts as they continue to stare at each other without uttering a word. Eventually, Parfait's eyes wander to me. Keeping her in the dark won't make this situation any better, Delora. Parfait moves towards me, but her knees buckle. Before I can react, Delora is already at her side, supporting her. Parfait, you need to rest. I'll take care of this. No! She needs to hear this from both of us. What is going on? We wanted to tell you about this later, but we can no longer afford to wait. Delora helps Parfait to a chair. I tentatively take a seat opposite the two of them. We're going to tell you the whole truth of this situation. The whole truth? Delora sighs before she eventually speaks. Do you know why I cursed you, Princess? Some twisted sense of mischief? That's not the whole reason. We needed you to change your ways, Princess, to change how you see the world. If we didn't do something, you were going to end up as merciless and cold-hearted as your mother. What are you talking about? My eyes go to Parfait, but she doesn't meet my gaze. Hildyr, your mother, was not always so cruel. Parfait's eyes look wet as if she's about to cry. Why are you speaking as if you knew her? She was my friend. Long before she was the queen, Hildyr was like a sister to me. But she changed when the witch hunt started. What does the witch hunt have to do with Mother? Parfait does not meet my eyes, but Delora looks right at me. Your mother was a witch, Melody, the most powerful of the witches, in fact. Hildyr was the Tenebrarum bearer. My heart drops into the pit of my stomach. No, that is impossible. I've never seen her use magic. She cannot be a witch. That's what she wanted you to believe. You cannot keep something like that a secret. If you try hard enough, you can keep anything a secret, even from your own family. But how? Delora pauses for a long moment before she speaks. She erased your memories, Melody. The air leaves my lungs as I struggle to remain calm. Walt said that Mother ordered my memories to be erased, but are they saying that it was Mother herself who erased my memories? Jagged pieces of memory and thought begin to snap together in my mind. She needed you obedient and compliant. Whenever you acted out, she took that memory of disobedience from you. And it didn't take long at all to mold you into her perfect and unquestioning little doll. I grip my dress without realizing my hands are shaking. Then I did know Waltz. Mother really did erase my memories of him. How much of my childhood did I lose? Hildyr cherished humans before. She was kind and selfless. She was devoted to maintaining the balance between the Lucius and the Tenebrarum. But Hans... Delora moves to place a gentle hand on Parfait's shoulder. It's not your fault. I trusted him too much. He swore that they would only be stories, some fantasies to share with his children. Hildyr wanted to turn him away, but I disagreed. I allowed Hans to weave his tales about witches and fairies. The fairy tales? Delora nods. Hans's fairy tales became hugely popular, and in practically every single one of his stories, it was a witch who was bad and a fairy who was good. To add insult to injury, it was well known that Hans had been welcomed by the Lucius bearer, but not by the Tenebrarum bearer. The humans took that information, and their imaginations ran wild. Hildyr and I went to Hans to beg him to tell the truth, but it was too late. No matter what Hans said, everyone believed that he was being threatened by the witches. I don't think he ever meant for things to get so out of hand either. When the king at the time, Your grandfather also voiced his negative opinions on witches. He only added fuel to the fire. It was as if he was giving humans permission to carry on with their witch genocide. And we could do nothing to defend ourselves. We were bound to our oath to never hurt a living soul. The witch hunt lasted for years. Most of us were slaughtered. All witches are bound to the Tenebrarum bearer through the Tenebrarum itself. Hildir felt each of the deaths like it was her own. It drove her mad. And she broke our oath. She killed the king, your grandfather. Mother killed my grandfather? As Hildir's power kept growing, more and more good witches were corrupted through her influence on the Tenebrarum. I tried to stop her, but she was already lost to reason. Hildir wanted to take on Giel for the witches. She wanted to take revenge on the humans for what they had done to all of us. And since your father was next in line, Hildir forced Gennaro to marry her so she would have a legitimate claim to the throne. And she did it even though she knew he loved another woman. The very woman who sits on the throne today. Ophelia? Delora nods. The king has always loved Ophelia. Hildir created the fairy tale curse to punish the humans. She wanted to fuel the Tenebrarum with their hatred and anger. Parfait's voice becomes very soft. The balance between dark and light was lost. While Hildir lived, Angiel was a place of grief. I could feel an impending headache coming on. But, even if what you're saying is true, Mother is dead. She's been dead for 4 years. She is, but for some reason the witches are becoming more active. Garland and Jurian's patrols have confirmed this. Patrols? Is that why they disappear at night? I had to cast a glamour on you so that other witches would be unable to recognize you as the princess. But it seems like they've already seen through your glamour. They're looking for you, princess. The witches are looking for you. What? Why? The Tenebrarum needs a bearer. A witch needs to take on that role and regulate the balance between the Lucius and the Tenebrarum. For the past few years, it's been in a state of hibernation. We believe Hildir infused her life into the Tenebrarum to keep it stable. But now the Tenebrarum is beginning to awake again. We believe that's why so many people are being cursed lately. The witches are preparing for their new bearer. Delora turns to me with an expression I cannot quite read. They only have to wait until you turn 18. The air in the room seems to disappear all at once. Princess, on your 18th birthday, your curse will break regardless of whether you complete your 3 good deeds. And you will become the Tenebrarum bearer. You will inherit that title and that power from your mother. Impossible! My heart is racing and I feel faint. Even if Mother was a witch, I can't use magic at all. All halflings like you inherit their magic at 18. No, I am human! Princess! Delora's expression is grim as she speaks. We've been watching over you for a long time, Melody. We know what sort of influence your mother had on you. The curse was a test. We needed to know that you wouldn't return Angiel to what it was when your mother was queen. We can't allow another great war to tear Angiel apart. Delora and I believe that there is still goodness left in you. You just needed a wake-up call, thus the curse and the 3 good deeds. We wanted you to see what you hadn't in years, to be exposed to the true reality of things. And above all, we needed to see that you were capable of 3 good deeds. I attempt to grasp the fleeing thoughts in my mind, but to no avail. I feel numb. That's it. No more secrets. Parfait's voice is gentle when she speaks to me. The future of this kingdom is in your hands. Will you follow your mother's footsteps, or will you achieve the same balance that we had before? No matter how much I try, I am unable to sleep after my talk with Delora and Parfait. Mother was a wicked witch, and I am the next bearer of the Tenebrarum. It all makes sense now. So many people hated me because they thought I would be just like Mother. I feel the weight of that truth crash down on me, and it is suffocating. What am I supposed to do now? I turn to my side and bring my knees to my chest. How do I know what the truth is anymore? Suddenly an idea occurs to me. There is one other person who might know the truth. Waltz! I wonder how he's doing. I slip out of my room and make my way towards WALTZ'S. Waltz is sound asleep when I push the door to his room open. He looks so small on the bed. I pause to look at the hefty amount of herbs lying on the table. Those herbs! I remember a niece once told me that they help with pain. Rumple and a niece have given Waltz a lot of them. Thoughts about the truth of my mother retreat to the back of my mind as I remember the encounter with Varge. Waltz would never have gotten hurt if it wasn't for me. My eyes are beginning to sting. We're gonna just cry. Cry it out, girl! For the first time in years, I let my tears flow freely. I do not even know why I am crying, and I find myself talking aloud. You said that crying doesn't make a person weak, but it certainly makes me feel that way. You're not weak, princess. Oh, he's so cute. Waltz? When did he wake up? You're the strongest person I know. Waltz's voice is soft and his words are slurred. He is clearly still under the influence of the medication he's been given, but he still continues to speak. Despite everything you've gone through, you're still standing on your own 2 feet. I cannot lie anymore. I have only been pretending to be a strong person. But I cannot do this anymore, knowing that all this time I have been living a life full of lies. I'm questioning even my mother's affections now. Another dangerously gloomy thought hangs at the brink of my mind. If Mother did not care about me, that means no one did at all. I do. I care about you, Melody. Waltz's voice begins to grow weak as his eyes flutter closed. You're tired, Waltz. You should sleep. Melody. His voice is slurred and slow, but hearing him say my name without the title somehow feels nostalgic. Please don't cry, little star. Waltz closes his eyes, finally surrendering to sleep. I take a deep breath and leave his room, closing the door quietly behind me. Again! Okay. Abracadabra. Teach me how to do it too. A magician never reveals a secret, little star. You always say that. Please. Just this one. Please, Waltz. On your birthday. I'll teach you how to do it on your birthday. Promise? Promise. I wake slowly, the dream somehow still clear in my mind. A dream about Waltz? Was that a memory? I shake my head before I glance at the clock, stopping to stare at the time. How is it already this late? Princess? Waltz? The door opens and Waltz walks inside with a tray of food. He sets it down by my bedside and I stare at him in shock. You're finally awake. Waltz, you are supposed to be in bed. I'm only injured, not an invalid, princess. But I'm fine, princess. It's not like you to worry so much. I respond to his smile with an exasperated sigh. He will never heal properly if he does not stay in bed. Here, I wanted to give this to you yesterday. Waltz reaches behind his back and pulls out a neatly wrapped box. It looks as if he pulled it out of thin air. Another magic trick? He hands me the wrapped box. What's this? You'll need to open it to find out. Oh, it's the doll! You've been wanting this, haven't you? I stare down at the doll he bought for me. It is the same one that caught my eye at the shop. The reason we went to the toy shop was so that you could buy this for me? Yup, I'm glad it didn't get damaged last night. My chest tightens with emotion. These dolls are expensive. Waltz would have needed more than just his usual show tips to buy this. Why would you buy this for me? I figured you might want the extra company. Plus, you've always loved dolls, so I thought this one might cheer you up. I stare at the doll as I cradle her in my arms, or in my hands, my heart feeling full in my chest. Thank you. I have never gotten an unexpected gift like this before. Waltz clears his throat, and when I look up at him, I notice that his expression is somehow sad. Lady Parfait told me that she and Delora told you the whole story yesterday. I have to apologize to you. For what? The reason why they didn't tell you earlier is because I asked that they keep it a secret. I look down at the doll, my mouth suddenly dry. Why? Because I wanted you to enjoy having a normal life, even if it was just for a short time. Knowing the truth limits your freedom. I didn't want you to feel that pressure so soon. But I could see now that it was selfish of me to deprive you of the truth. I'm sorry. I clutched tighter at the doll, unable to look up at Waltz. Why would you be so kind without expecting anything in return? Kindness doesn't always need to be paid back. When you do something for someone, they will always expect the favor to be returned. That is what Mother taught me. From what I have experienced, no one is ever kind without expecting something in return. I don't expect anything from you in return, Princess. But how can I know for certain that you are speaking the truth? Well, you can't. No matter what someone's true intentions are, their actions are always up for a different interpretation. So it'll be up to you to judge their actions. Only you can decide whether or not to believe in me. I pull my knees to my chest, curling up around the doll. I still do not understand how you could be kind to me. You told me yourself it was the Tenebrarum bearer that cursed you. That means my mother. Your mother was the witch that took away my magic and sealed it in Neverland, but that does not mean that it's your fault that I'm cursed. You are more than just Hildir's daughter, Princess. You are your own person, and I know for a fact that you are capable of more goodness than Hildir ever was. Waltz gestures towards my necklace. You're only 2 good deeds away from breaking your curse. I would not have accomplished the first one without your help. In fact, I have done nothing to help you break your... My voice trails off as my thoughts begin to come together. Waltz, to break your curse, you need to find Tinkerbell in Neverland, right? What do they look like? Neverland is a gold box with a carving of wings on the top, and Tinkerbell is the matching key. I sit up abruptly. We have to go to the palace. Walt stares at me, his expression clearly perplexed. What? Why? Because I know where to find Tinkerbell in Neverland. Ooh, here we go. We're getting into it. Waltz's description of Neverland and Tinkerbell was enough to jog my memory. A long time ago, Mother gave me a box and a key that match Waltz's earlier description perfectly. She gave me strict instructions to hide them in my room, and to never let anyone else have them. I never questioned Mother's orders and kept both the box and key tucked in one of my drawers. I'd forgotten I even had those things until Waltz mentioned them. The minute I remembered, I sent a letter to Rod requesting he help us get into the palace. I knew that our strained relationship would make it hard for him to trust me, so I emphasized the importance of the item we needed to obtain. A week later, he finally came through. Now we are just outside the palace waiting for him. Jurian and Garland are here to protect us in case the need arises. I glance at Waltz, who is standing beside me, fidgeting. He has been against me coming with him ever since he found out my plans. He cannot stop me. I refuse to be left behind. You still won't change your mind about this, Princess? You know the situation with the witches. It's not safe for you to be here. It is not safe for me anywhere outside of the Marchand, and you know that. Besides, how do you plan on finding Neverland and Tinkerbell without me? I am the only one who knows where they are. Like I said, if you would just tell me where they are, I could go on my own. There's no need for you to put yourself in this much danger. I am going, and you cannot stop me, Waltz. Princess. I turned to face him fully. This is my choice, Waltz. I want to do this. For a moment, there is silence between us as Waltz studies my expression. He eventually sighs and shakes his head. I should know by now that there's no changing your mind when you're determined to do something. Just promise to stay close to me, okay? I nod absently as I feel around in my pocket for a small object, a vial that Parfait gave me before Waltz and I left for the palace. She said that it should help us when the need arises. It is a shame that neither Parfait nor Delora could be here due to their urgent meeting with the fairies. Excuse me. Jurian and Garland finally arrive with Rod. Ready? I can only nod in reply. Hopefully nothing will go wrong. We make our way through the secret passageway. I've heard of the secret passageway from the king before, but this is the first time I have ever been here. They say that this was built as an escape route should the need to evacuate the royal family arise. Only the commander of the Order of Caldera and the king know about this place. Rod, how do you even know this place? How did you get a key? I thought that only the king and Sir Alcaster had copies. It was Lady Parfait who showed me this place and gave me the key. I can't leave the palace unattended on normal circumstances, so she suggested I go through here whenever I needed to get to the Marchen. Then, how was she able to get a copy of the key? You should ask her that yourself. Anyway, you haven't even told me what you needed from your room. It is an item that will break WALTZ'S curse. I see. Why did it take you so long to respond to my letter? The palace has been on high alert since last week. Why? Rod stops and looks at me. The hesitation is clear in his eyes. Did something happen? A week ago, the king received a letter. A warning. A letter? It said that 3 days from now, the king will be judged and convicted. His crown will be given to one more worthy. I stare at Rod with slow understanding. 3 days from now? But that date? Your 18th birthday. I continue to stare at Rod in disbelief. This cannot be a coincidence. But a new king? Do you think someone is specifically targeting my father? We all know that royals are always in danger. But this threat has made the king especially nervous. Are the witches involved in this? The silence that falls within the tunnels is heavy. They think there is a good chance they must be. That's why the Order of Caldera has tightened security. We continue walking in silence. Eventually, Rod points at something ahead of us. Here we are. The dim light of the tunnel illuminated a rusted door that leads into the palace. Rod looks around warily while Waltz and I quickly duck into the shadows of column. The guards will be doing their rounds on this side soon. We need to hurry. Right. The hallways are thankfully quiet as we traverse them. Rod did a good job of scoping out the times of patrol. Eventually, we reach my room. I stop at the door to my room, suddenly overwhelmed by nostalgia. It has been so long since I've been in my room. Is this a Melanie's room now? No, by the king's order, your room has been untouched since you were cursed. Then, what has become of this room? I look at Rod in shock as he studies the door to my room with a complicated expression on his face. I think maids are sent in here to dust occasionally, but otherwise everything should be just as it was before. But why would the king keep the room as it is if he does not remember me? I turn back to the door thoughtfully, then glance at Rod. We can handle the rest. You should leave before you draw any unwanted attention. I do not want to get you in trouble. Don't worry, we'll figure out a way to get back to that passage without alerting anyone. What? You've changed. What do you mean by that? You never would have cared about someone else's safety before. Rod turns to leave before I can respond. Be careful. Thank you. Garland and I will stand outside. Make it quick. I nod at Jurian before turning back to the door and turning the knob. I glance at Waltz and he nods at me. I take a deep breath and open the door. Rod told me that my room had been untouched since I left, but I was not expecting it to be like this. Nothing has changed. Not a thing out of place. There is not even a speck of dust on the dolls on my shelves. Melody? I'm confused as to why this room has been untouched. Certainly the king would have thought to do something else with it. Or in the very least, he would not have maids coming in consistently to clean it. But I cannot let myself linger on the questions. I have no time for them. We came here to find Neverland and Tinkerbell. I look at Waltz and nod. Let us start searching. Time passes, but I am only able to find the key. The box is nowhere to be found, not even in the drawer that I remembered putting it in. To think that you had Neverland and Tinkerbell this whole time. Have you tried searching for it in my room before? I have, but I didn't find anything. She must have used a glamour magic to hide it from me. I stare at the key with frustration. I don't understand. I am sure it was here. Are you sure you didn't throw it away? No, I would never throw away such a beautiful box. Besides, I keep most of my things. They are all valuable to me, even if they are not outwardly beautiful. I wouldn't have believed you if I hadn't seen this. He leans down to pluck a puppet from one of my drawers. He holds it up with a smile and I feel my cheeks heat in embarrassment. Oh, it's still cute. I never remembered to throw that out. Waltz gazes at me thoughtfully. That's the only reason? Well, I look at the puppet in his hands and find the truth spilling out of me. I was never able to put my finger on why, but I have always liked that puppet. A smile stretches across Waltz's face. You kept it even though I did such a bad job with the sewing. Also, I'm so sorry about that loud-ass car outside. What? You made this? Yeah, this is the first puppet I ever made. Waltz turns the puppet in his hands, looking down on it fondly before his eyes meet mine. You were the one who taught me how to sew in the first place, you know. What? I was the one who taught him how to sew. I stare at the puppet. I probably kept it because you made it. How cruel. Huh? Do you have any idea what you're doing to my poor heart? You seem perfectly fine to me. Waltz shakes his head and sighs. Waltz? So dense. What? The knob begins to turn. Waltz and I exchange glances before we both dart to different hiding places. I hide myself under the bed and he runs behind the curtains, which more easily conceal his smaller body. The king! What is he doing here? When the king steps inside, I notice that there is something in his hands. It's Neverland! That's the box. But why does he have it? I look at Waltz and he gives me a small nod, affirming that it is indeed Neverland. Who's there? Show yourself now if you don't want to get hurt. The king unsheathes his sword. What should we do? I look at Waltz, who signals for me to stay in place. He mouths something, and I think he might be saying that he means to find a way to get us out. Is Waltz going to sacrifice himself again? Will he be all right? Should I trust him? We're gonna stay. I nod at Waltz. He steps out of the curtains and raises his hands in surrender. Forgive me, Your Majesty. I know you. You were Hildir's apprentice, Waltz, was it? I remembered then that Waltz had worked for Mother, so naturally the king would know who he was. It's been a while, Your Majesty. I'm honored you still remember me. You haven't changed, not at all. So, Hildir really did curse you for betraying her. Betraying her? Betraying her how? The king places his sword back in its scabbard. I have no idea what you are doing here now, but the king surprises us both by getting down on one knee and bowing to Waltz. Your Majesty, you shouldn't. I was never able to thank you after the war, so thank you. You did so much for our kingdom, Waltz. So thank you. We owe you our lives. If only all witches were as good as you. The king stands once again, his posture stiff and straight. There are more of us than you think, Your Majesty. I am lost. What are they talking about? But I didn't do it for the kingdom. Waltz turns to look at me suddenly, a small smile on his face. I did it for her. Her? Who are you talking about? Waltz nods his head at me. It's all right, Melody. I slide out of my hiding place and stand in front of the king. It has been months since I last saw him. The king's eyes widen as he looks at me. You're that girl from the gates. You remember me? It's more like I find it impossible to forget you. What? I have a lot of questions for the two of you, but the most important is, why are you both in this room? Regardless of the fact that I know you, Waltz, you have still broken into the palace. We would not have done it if we did not have to. I steel myself for further scolding when the king turns to look at me. That box you are holding, we needed to break Waltz's curse. How did you come to have it, Your Majesty? The king looks down at the box, as if only noticing it for the first time. I was in this room the other day and noticed a chip on the side of the box. I took it to get it fixed. A chip? I did drop it once a while back, but I did not think to get it fixed myself. Why would you do that? The king looks around the room, a faraway look in his eyes. This room is special to me, though I do not know why. I feel like this room and I are both waiting for someone to return, and everything must be perfect for when they do. I feel my chest tighten, even as the king huffs out a derisive laugh. What am I saying? He cannot miss me when he does not remember me. He can't. Right? But if this box is all that you require, Waltz, you may have it. It is the least I could do after all that you have done for us. The king holds out the box to Waltz, who reaches out to take it. Thank you, Your Majesty. Look who we have here. We all freeze at the sound of the new voice. I turn and find an all too familiar figure leaning against the doorway, a mischievous grin on his face. What a sweet little reunion. Varge? Chapter 6, Betrayals. Varge! I told you I'd come back for you, didn't I? Varge taps his cane on the floor, creating a shockwave of powerful energy that blasts us all across the room. The impact of the magic forces me against the wall. I collapse to my knees, pain thrumming in my head. The king collapses somewhere nearby, and I hear the crack of the box as it lands on the ground a few feet away from us. Waltz holds out his hand. I take it, and he helps me back to my feet. Melody, are you all right? Yes. Melody? The king looks at me quizzically, but his gaze does not linger. He looks toward Varge, his eyes narrowed. Did the king remember who I was? Your Majesty, are you hurt? The king shakes his head at Waltz before turning his attention to Varge, his eyebrows furrowed. Who is this man? Your Majesty, this person is working for the Wicked Witches. What? Wait, what happened to Jurian and Garland? They were just outside the door. What did you do to them? Varge cocks his head to the side. Who? The guards just outside the door. I am sure that they must have hid themselves when they saw the king coming to the room, but they still should have been able to see Varge coming. Guards? I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about, Princess. Varge seems like he's telling the truth, but I cannot trust him. Please let them be safe. I see Neverland a few feet from us. I could try to grab it, but Varge will probably thwart my attempt with magic. I have to wait for an opening. I'll distract him. While I do that, the both of you need to run. What? I eye Varge. He looks at the three of us with his lips slightly quirked as if he is amused. This isn't the time to argue with me, Melody. We're gonna stay with him. No. Melody. We must prioritize the king's safety. I will help you. I do not know how, but I must do something. But we are in this together, Waltz. I'm not going to run away while you sacrifice yourself for us. Waltz's disapproval is clearly written on his face, but he eventually sighs out, seeming to let it go. You're too stubborn for your own good. So I've been told. I turn to the king and place a hand on his shoulder. Your Majesty, leave this to us. You have to escape somewhere safe. This does not involve the king. It is me that Varge wants, after all. The king shakes his head as he removes my hand from his shoulder. He stands up and moves in front of us before pulling his sword from his sheath. Your Majesty! What kind of king would I be if I stood back and allowed two children to protect me? Varge looks amused by our conversation. You know that I'm not letting you get away this time, Princess. It doesn't matter who stands in my way. Father, his cane is enchanted. You cannot hold him with just a blade. Father? I am at a loss for words. It has been a long time since I called him that. Much to my surprise, the king's lips pull into a soft smile. You said that at the gates that one day, when you were seeking an audience with me. I have not been able to forget that day. Before I could say anything in return, a familiarly soft or smooth voice breaks the ensuing silence. Oh, I wonder where all these voices are coming from. A familiar man steps into the doorway. He inspects everyone in the room quietly. Mithros! Your Majesty! Quickly, summon the knights. We have an intruder in the palace. He gestures at Varge, who looks unperturbed. An intruder, you say? Sir Mithros turns to Varge. At first, his expression is impassive, but then slowly his lips begin to edge into a sly smile. You're such a ruffian, Varge. Look at all of this property destruction. I can only gape at Sir Mithros in shock. If he knows Varge, then he is most certainly affiliated with the witches. You know this man. Explain yourself, Mithros. We are all thrown off guard by Sir Mithros' laughing. Soon his laugh becomes a mad cackle. There is a strange brightness in his eyes that sends shivers down my spine. My apologies, Your Majesty. I am just amused at my servant's atrocious behavior. At ease, Varge. Sir Mithros gestures at Varge, a silent command to lower his cane. Varge obeys him before moving to a corner of the room and leaning against the wall with disinterest. Don't worry, Your Majesty. You're not the one we're after. What? Sir Mithros turns a sly smile on me and I instinctively take a step back. The princess is the lady we need to escort. Escort? Princess? This girl is a princess? That is correct. It is a shame that you can't remember your own daughter, even though she stands right in front of you. Enough with your vagueness. Explain yourself. The king's grip on the hilt of his sword tightens. I am not obligated to explain everything to you. Try thinking on your own for a change, Your Majesty. Mithros! Sir Mithros ignores the king's outburst and turns his attention to Waltz. He visibly stiffens and his sly smile contorts into a grimace. And look who we have here. I see that the traitor has returned to the palace. Waltz stares at him, looking puzzled. Sir Mithros tilts his head to the side and offers Waltz a lopsided smile. You still look the same as you did back then. I did not think it was possible for you to grow any weaker, Waltz Cresswell. Mithros, I see. Waltz suddenly looks melancholy as he stares at Sir Mithros. Waltz, what is going on? This man's real name is Myth, and he is a witch, same as me. It appears that he has been using a powerful glamour to conceal his real identity. If I hadn't been cursed, I would have been able to tell right away. I would not give yourself so much credit, Cresswell. Waltz narrows his eyes but says nothing. I glance between the two of them, confused. But how do you know him? He secretly worked for your mother. Practically worshipped her. I was the only other person who knew of his existence as a witch outside the Tenebrarum Bearer. A witch? I trusted you, Mithros. The king says the words through gritted teeth, his face contorted in anger. Sir Mithros flicks a wrist. It is a dismissive gesture, and he still looks amused. What a hypocrite you are, your majesty. He eyes Waltz. You're willing to play nice with some witches, but not others. This bias is what drove us witches to madness in the first place. Sir Mithros faces the king with a grin. You human hypocrites are so easy to manipulate. It is pathetic. Mithros! The king charges towards Mithros with his sword held high. Your Majesty, don't! The king's sword never touches Sir Mithros. Sir Mithros only has to hold out his hand, and suddenly an invisible force pushes the king back. He crashes into one of my shelves, knocking down my dolls. Your Majesty! I quickly run to his side to help him up. Thankfully, he does not seem to have any major wounds. To think that there was a witch working in the palace this whole time! And not the good kind of witch either. I was too careless. Rejoice, your majesty, I still have more surprises for you. I will never forgive this betrayal, Mithros. Betrayal? I am afraid you have been played for a fool this entire time, your majesty. My loyalty has always been reserved for Lady Hildyr and no one else. Myth, I can't imagine what you would hope to gain from all this. Hildyr is long gone. Sir Mithros' eyes flash as he turns a severe glare on Waltz. His voice is seething with venom when he speaks. Had it not been for you, traitor, she would still be here. The king mentioned Waltz's betrayal. Sir Mithros called him a traitor. What exactly did Waltz do? Sir Mithros beckons me forward with a gesture of his hand. Now, if you please, princess, come with us, if you don't want them to get hurt. Waltz immediately stands in front of me. I won't let you take her. In your current form, you don't stand a chance. I will make certain that you never break your curse, Waltz. This whole thing was a setup, a trap. I'm sorry, Waltz, this is my fault. No, it was mine. The reason we came was to break my curse. My eyes once again flit to the box on the floor. Neverland is just a few steps away from me. Neverland? Waltz's eyes follow mine to the box. He leans back and whispers to me. You have to get the box and break my curse. I feel for the key inside my pocket. If Waltz's true magic is indeed sealed in that box, then releasing it might give us a chance at victory. And Mithros and Varge do not seem to have caught on to the fact that the object will break Waltz's curses right at their feet. Okay. The king moves to stand beside Waltz and draws the sword again, his body a shield. Your Majesty! I will not let you take this girl. You will have to go through me first. You can't do this! Melody. I've always loved that name. I thought if I ever had a daughter, I would give her that name. Magic makes even the impossible possible. You must truly be my daughter, yes? Tears start to blur my vision. Oh, how disgustingly touching. It seems as if I will have to deal with you first. No! I rush towards the box at the same movement Mithros casts a spell. Varge lunges toward me, his hands reaching for me. But he is too late. By the time he grabs me, I have already inserted the key into Neverland. I give it one definite twist and hear the click of the box as it pops open. White flashes through the room, through the room, blinding me. Suddenly, I feel a strong arm around me, holding me tightly, protectively. When I open my eyes, it is Waltz I see. Even several years older, I still recognize him. But that is all the time that I have for this episode, guys. So if you liked it, hit that like button down below and don't forget to subscribe. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next time. Bye!